Hi, so this week on the podcast episode, I'm going to be talking about what it's really like to work in pharma and how you'll have to have a mindset shift, especially if you're coming from an agency or like a medcoms agency or an advertising agency or a contract research organization or academia or clinical practice. I'm going to break it down some of the differences and the mindset shifts that you'll need to have moving from those different careers into a career in biopharma. So don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel if you want more content like this. So let's break it down. So when you're working in agency, I'll start with agency first. When you're working in an agency, you have your client or clients. You might have multiple clients, and really you're subject to what the client wants. So the client says jump and you say how high. What I love about agency is the fact that everyone's working together as a team. So the client can say anything. They can be really mean, they can give you a really bad brief, but you're all in it together. So you can split that workload between you. So everything, in a way, in the middle of so if you imagine it like an image, all of the agency team is in the middle of a circle and everything is coming from one or two directions externally. So there are advantages and disadvantages. Like, you can't control what your client wants, you can't control the timing, the request. You can push back to a degree, but really what the client wants, the client gets. And that can be challenging in a way because you're not necessarily in control, you're not in the driving seat. But one of the things I like about agency is the fact that you're all united in this common goal to deliver something for the client, and it's very rarely completely on one person. Like, it can be split between the team, it can be split with freelancers. There's normally, so when you go on holiday or whatever, you can completely forget about your work. On the flip side, what it's like when you're in a biopharma company, no matter what role, you're like an island and you're surrounded by multiple stakeholders all around you who want something from you. So whether that's medical review, whether that's input on a document, whether that's to be part of a core team for a project, whether that's actually an external doctor asking you something for a grant, for a project to work on them with, all kinds of things, then there's a lot of noise all around you, and you have to shift your mindset. If you don't prioritize your own time, you don't prioritize your onboarding, you don't prioritize, okay, I've got all of this noise around me from 20 people asking me for something, I can't do 20 things. What's the priority? Then you have to manage your time. So you have to say to some of these people, look, I'm sorry, I can't work on this, but here's my colleague who can. Or I can't work on this right now because I have this really higher priority initiative or something like that. But I can come back to you in a couple of weeks. So you really have to manage your time and be in control of your time. Otherwise, your time will manage you. And the problem is, nobody knows how much work you have. Only you really know how much work you have. Even your manager might not be fully aware, because sometimes your manager is only a manager in terms of kind of HR processes and things. They don't always even work with you. So it's really a different mindset. And I think that the tip for me, for people moving from agency into pharma, is to get really good at being in charge of your own calendar, in charge of your own projects, and where you spend your time, because otherwise people will try and take it from you. If you're moving from a CRO, so a contract research organization, into pharma, kind of similar to agency, you'll maybe have a set protocol or study or something that you need to work on, again, from the pharma person as your client. Again, I think you have a very clear deliverable. When you get into pharma, sometimes the deliverable isn't necessarily clear. You might have multiple deliverables. You have to get really comfortable with uncertainty. And even sometimes if you know, okay, I need to deliver this project, the how you're going to do that is not necessarily clear. There might not even be a process for that. And I think when you work in a CRO, there's probably like very clear processes and checklists, and that might not be the case when you get in-house in pharma. So I think you have to be really comfortable with uncertainty. If you're moving from academia into pharma, I think in academia, you're most likely completely in control of what you're doing every day. People in academia might work strange hours because you're basically working on your own, very detailed work, very precise. So you're probably used to doing everything perfectly and to your own standards. When you get into pharma, you're obviously not going to be on your own. You're going to be working with big teams for a common goal. It might not be a very specific area. It might be quite broad. And you won't be able to do everything 100% perfectly. It's never going to be perfect. Nothing's ever going to be perfect. It's better to do something and then iterate and amend and improve than it is to to delay things for months and get it perfect. I mean, there is no such thing anyway. So you have to be really comfortable with being okay with 80%, 80% there. If you're coming from clinical practice, you're probably used to rapidly making decisions. So you see a patient, you refer them, you might have only a very small window of time to speak to your patient. And then you're used to making rapid decisions, prescribing, done, next patient. So what will be really disconcerting coming into pharma is just how slow things move. And that's because of the number of stakeholders, that's because of processes, that's because of compliance, having to engage with multiple stakeholders, having multiple reviews and making sure things are checked with legal and things like that. So I think it will be really it will feel really slow in pharma, just to not be concerned about that, because that's the way it works really. And not to be too frustrated, because I think it's quite a learning curve coming from clinical into pharma. You also need to think bigger picture as well. So the mindset shift is, I'm making an impact for this individual patient, but actually you're making a bigger impact for society, for public health. So I wanted to kind of talk through what some of the differences are, because I think the key is to have a bit of an understanding now, because so when you start the process of applying for roles, you really understand how things work, what they're looking for, the hiring managers, and also how to set yourself up for success. Because if you go in with your preconceived ideas of what it's like, and you go in with the mindset of your previous role, you're going to go in thinking, oh, this is really badly organized. This doesn't make sense. Like, nothing makes sense here. Or why do I have to meet with 20 people? Like, I just want to crack on and do this work. And I think that's a mistake, because yes, it can feel disorganized, and in some ways it might be, but that's just what large organizations are like. And it's not limited to biopharma. Any large corporate organization will have a very similar structure, where you have to collaborate with multiple people. You have to get input, you have to get their buy-in, you have to get their endorsement. So you kind of need to go in with a new mindset, which is like, who do I need to meet with? Who do I need to impress? Who do I need to get on board with my vision? Because that will just help you to be able to do the best work, and to meet some of the objectives that you have. So instead of going in the mindset of I could just do this quicker and easier on my own, you need to go in with the mindset of wanting to collaborate and be part of a bigger um, and more impactful in a way, because you can make so much of a bigger impact than you can in some of the smaller companies for patients. So it's really a mindset shift as much as anything else. And I think that's why I really try to explain, as much as possible what you're going to expect when you make that move. I hope you liked this episode. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on any new episodes, and I'll see you soon.